energy update. I posted a little astrological thing on Facebook and Instagram yesterday. It was the 1010 portal. And the 1010 portal, October 10th, has a really nice kind of numerology vibration. 10 actually, numerologically speaking, ends up being a one because it's 1 + 0 = 1. And so it's really a time of new beginnings. So I feel like we're kind of ushering in this Phoenix type energy right now. And so sometimes Phoenix energy is like tower energy. If you're familiar with the tower card in tarot, it's this tower that is on fire and falling apart, and people are falling off of it. It's kind of a scary card. In the Spirit Song Tarot deck, which I love to use, a lot of times the tower card is represented with a chameleon. And so there's an energy of adaptation and change too. So I kind of like that imagery a little better. But when we think of Phoenix energy, there is it's definitely a cycle, right? And the Phoenix, it is at the end of its life or that season or chapter, it literally catches on fire and is consumed by fire and transformation, and then, turns into ash. But then it is then rebirthed out of those ashes as a brand new little fledgling baby phoenix, and then it grows up. So there are different mythologies and different stories about Phoenix energy. And although, when we think of death and we think of like a fiery death, or we think of, that end and stuff, sometimes that can be really scary. And I think that sometimes that reminds us of our own humanity, and of our own cycles in our life, or maybe, the cycles that we've observed in other people's lives. But it is a natural process. And the energy of fire, I love to use for transformation and for releasing and letting go and letting that energy change from one thing into something else, so that, energy can kind of be restarted again. So if you're having any kind of endings, or if you're experiencing endings that are not fun, or that are upsetting, causing disruption in your life, it's not that you're doing anything wrong for that transition to be awful. I mean, sometimes stuff just really has to be, torn apart or transformed in order for us to move to that next phase or cycle. But a lot of times when we don't resist it, when we accept that change and accept our role in, if any, in that change, then it actually helps the process happen much more gracefully. And this is just a tiny little example I'm going to give you that just came to mind. So like when we have like a loved one who is passing on, let's say they're ailing, they're old, or they're dying, we're seeing them die, we're experiencing that, and that can go on for months or weeks or days. There are people that are called death doulas that actually help with that process of that transition. And it is a very sacred and beautiful way of helping that person transition and helping the people around that person, family or loved ones, also help with that transition. And I know you've heard that sometimes if someone is passing, and this could be a human, this could be an animal too, but when someone or something is passing, that sometimes you have to say, it's okay, I'm okay, for you to go. It's like it's not that you're giving them permission, but you're letting them know that, you're not trying to keep them on the earth plane. And because, we humans are connected, right? And we do so many things for other people, and our animals that, we love and take care of. I mean, they love and take care of us too. There's an exchange there. So, that little, kind of example is to remind you that resistance, and that friction can kind of slow the process, but it's not going to stop the process, right? It's still going to happen. We're all going to leave the earth plane eventually one day. And although it's not something that we necessarily look forward to, or that we look forward, to losing our loved ones, our pets, it's part of it. And of course, we're already basically in the middle of October almost. And the veil is thinning. This is ancestor time. This is time for us to honor really the end of the year, and this time of kind of like darkness and more quiet, before the light would return, if we're talking about the kind of the solar calendar. But it is a time of death and honoring that. So that's not, of course, to be doom and gloom or anything like that, but it's to say that when we also just kind of really allow ourselves to feel the energies of the season, the energies of whatever is going on, then, sorry, I was just meeting. When we allow us to really be a part of those energies, then the friction is gone. The resistance is gone. We're going with the flow of all of that. So going back to talking about Phoenix energy, and I think that's really cool that energy is really coming through, as it is like, that's just the season for it. And when we look at things, passing, things kind of dying away, let's talk more metaphorically right now, or not necessarily metaphorically, but not people, systems, situations, things, right? When we talk about Phoenix energy in regards to our lives, then we can really see it as almost a springboard for ushering in what really is better suited for us, what works for us, what we've intended that we might have to get stuff out of the way in order to make room for that stuff to flow in. And we had a lot of planets in retrograde. I believe there were 5 at one point, and we have planets getting ready to turn direct again. We just had Saturn turn direct, well, today officially. Mercury goes direct, Jupiter goes direct on the close to the full moon is on the 18th, and those go direct on the same day, which is kind of rare. So all of these planets going direct again, which planets never actually go in reverse, but it's from our vantage point on Earth, they appear to, because of the elliptical orbits around the sun and how everything's kind of juxtaposed in space, they appear to be going in reverse. And so we experience the energies of like that energy, like kind of slowing down, or there being that friction and resistance. But everything's kind of, those gears, those cogs are kind of getting back into forward motion. So, with that Phoenix energy, I feel like if we have resistance to it, it'll feel like it's taken a while, it's a struggle. But if we kind of just like surrender to that and say, okay, like, I'm just going to go with the flow, then everything starts like lining back up. And so Saturn is the planet of, like, it can be rules, it can be like tradition, it can be karma, just kind of more like cause and effect. Sometimes it can feel like a very oppressive energy too, or kind of upsetting. Like when people have their Saturn return, Saturn is a slower moving planet in our lifetimes. So when Saturn return is around our 30s, but it can start around, year 28, 29 and kind of go on past the 30, like 30 or like 31 or 32. A lot of times we see kind of like a big reset or upset in our priorities in our life. We may change jobs, we may change relationships. There could be lots of just changes or things like, okay, it's time to actually grow up and be responsible. And, you're in your 30s. So with us experiencing, this Saturn energy here in this year going direct again, we might have felt like we were kind of in this anarchist, like kind of like chaotic, like, oh, I can just do what I want, and nobody's held responsible for anything for the last while it was retrograde. But then now we have the energy of that structure again. And so we can see that potentially play out in a lot of different ways, in our own personal lives, in our community and our country and the planet. And to me, I really feel like the paradigm of what was, and if we want to call that paradigm like the more male dominated, the patriarchy, if you want to call it that. We've been talking about the patriarchy falling for a while, but that is kind of like the old structure. That's not the original structure, but that is the old structure that's been around for a while, right? And not that there's anything wrong with like divine masculine energy or masculine energy and that projective action focused energy. But if it's just all leaning towards that, then everything gets out of whack, as we can see. So I feel that with structure and with tradition, that we are being called to look at what new traditions, what healthy foundations and structures and systems are we really wanting to will into existence. And I know that a lot of stuff feels like we're completely, like we have no control over it all. We have no influence over it at all, or maybe just a tiny bit. Some of the systems and structures feel very big and very determined and very strong. And it's like, how would we ever change this? But I feel like that there is a lot of dismantling going on. And it really starts with us first. It really starts with us saying, what am I going to stop or undo or dismantle within myself that I either just do out of habit? I was raised this way, and I've kind of just adapted it into my adult life. Or it could be kind of like larger societal structures and constructs that we're in. And I feel like within ourselves, though, it's time to reevaluate and say, okay, well, I've been doing this, or I've had to be a part of this, or, I've been participating, or grumpy and not wanting to participate, but I have to, whatever it is. And it's time to look within yourself and say, okay, well, what things that can I change? Not that there's, all this stuff wrong with you or you're doing stuff wrong, but if you're doing something in your life or the systems, framework, structure, whatever, if it doesn't really work for you, then maybe it's time to reevaluate that. And maybe it's time to say, well, how can this energy change and make it work first and foremost for myself? What kind of new system or structure should I, establish in my life? And then once we really kind of live our truth with that, and we are doing things energetically, we are living our lives, speaking our truth, all of that, that really aligns with us, then that just naturally enhances or shifts the energy around you, and your family and your friendships. Sometimes people don't like it so much that they like leave, and that's okay. Or sometimes you're like, I have boundaries and expectations now. I need to be the one to leave, whatever it is. And then we see it kind of ripple effect out into our community, out into our, where we live and the entire planet. It's part of this collective consciousness that we're all aware of and all part of. So the change starts with you, right? And I know that we can feel very insignificant and feel like, what change can I do? Sometimes like if we vote or if we have, even like an opinion about something in a group setting, like it just feels like, how can we ever get anything done? But truly aligning with your values and what feels right for you is always the first step. And if everybody would do that, it would just be phenomenal how much change we could actually really, bring about, if that's what needs to happen. And I'm not saying that everything about our lives, everything about the planet is wrong. There are some good things going on, but looking at this more patriarchal type energy and basically just shutting off from a receptive energy and of a nurturing energy, I don't think is really going to sustain us forever. There's certain things that have come out of that have been great. And then there's certain things that they're really awful. And we need balance. We need that duality of the masculine and the feminine energy, or the receptive and the projective energy, because we all have that, yin and yang inside all of us, right? However, we identify, we have that receptive and projective energy. And I feel like we should see that everywhere, right? So again, talking about Saturn's energy, it can feel like, oh, the system, and oh, the tradition or whatever. But especially if there's something that's like really triggering for you, or something that really upsets you, or has just a really main impact in your life regarding that structure or that tradition, um, use those things as a mirror, use those things to as a really nice shining example of like something you don't like, something that you don't want, and use it as a mirror to maybe look within, and whether that's to identify those old systems or structures that are within yourself that you need to release, or it could be something that you may not be like a control freak, you may not be like really regimented and stuff like externally, but maybe you have, if you're like one of those people that doesn't plan anything, like kind of chaotic and always late or whatever, you might secretly like have a lot of guilt about that, or you may have a lot of stress, that is internalized, based on that. Or, like I said, maybe if you're not like trying to be like structured to control your environment and everyone around you, but there might be something within yourself that you feel, guilty about, or you feel like you're just really hard on yourself about. And if it's a way for you to identify something and to grow and to heal, that's awesome. But if it's something that you're just like beating yourself up about, or just constantly feeling a negative emotion about, it's probably not good for you, right? It's probably bringing you down, instead of helping you feel expansive. So use that Saturn energy, to kind of help feel, that you feel empowered to restructure, and to also create your own traditions. That's another thing when thinking about like tradition. Tradition, when I think of that's like the way that things have always been, or it could be like traditions as far as like families or holidays or things like that. And like last year when we were, in the pandemic, but it was year one. And, people are like, do we get together for the holidays? Like everything felt really weird and off. My family didn't get together. My extended family didn't get together for Thanksgiving or Christmas, which we always do that. And it was actually our first year without my grandmother here. She died not this past February, but the February before. So just like right after COVID kind of blew up. And so it was quite a change for us, not only that she was gone, from the earth plane, but that we didn't get together as a family too. So, talking about tradition as far as, family traditions and stuff, even if it's just your own family unit, or like you and the cats, whatever it is, think about, maybe creating your own traditions that really support your own beliefs, your own things that will help you kind of build memories they're positive and good too. And Saturn can kind of have, it can have like a grandfatherly energy, which, depending on your own personal situation, that may bring up warm and fuzzy feelings, that may bring up like not so good feelings, or just kind of like neutral, like, I don't know, I didn't even know my grandfather, whatever it is. But if grandfather energy is something that you're feeling drawn to, or feeling that you would be comforted by that, or that you want some healing with that, you can also kind of use Saturn energy for that as well. All right. So one kind of last thing, and I feel like this is going to be a shorter energy update. I mean, I did like 40 minutes last time or something. So it just depends on how the energy comes through. Kind of one last point is that Mercury is still retrograde right now. And, we're always like, oh, technology is going to mess up, communication breakdown, things like that. Mercury's in Libra, as we're in the Libra season right now. And it can really have it's seeming to have effect on our relationships and how we communicate in our relationships. And there might be a breakdown of communication in our relationships right now. And so that energy will ease up a little bit, when Mercury goes direct, which will be on the 18th. But Mercury retrograde is such a wonderful time, as challenging as it can be, to really evaluate where you are and to look at things from the past that seem to kind of rear their ugly head, or to kind of, show back up, and especially with Libra having to do with love and relationships, you may have some themes from past relationships, or even like a past partner or something, kind of like, hey, showing back up on the radar briefly. But it's a really great time to evaluate, not like get stuck in the past or beat yourself up about the past, but it's, sometimes it's like, whew, I'm glad that's in the past. But it's a really great time to say, wow, who am I now? What all have I learned since I was, in that relationship or knew that person or was, exchanging that energy. And a lot of times then we really get that reality check this like, whoa, I have grown so much or I've changed so much, and even if we do grow and change and we start making different choices, maybe healthy choices, or, start inviting other energies into our life and into our relationships. Sometimes that Mercury retrograde energy helps us say, like 9 out of 10, I'm doing great. I made all this progress and everything's really so much more of kind of how I want to live my life. But there might be some stuff that's just kind of really deep down that we still have regrets about, or we still go, well, I wonder, did I make the right decision? Or maybe it's stuff that we're just like, well, that's in the past. I don't want to look at it. I want to touch it. I don't want to deal with it. And if it's there and there's even a tiny bit of our consciousness or subconscious that knows that it's there, it's still there. And it's still going to be just kind of like poking and prodding, so it's a good time to go, okay, I'm going to purge this, I'm going to look at it, shine the light on it for a little bit, release it or accept it or heal it or start that process. And it's not going to hold you. It's not going to hold you back anymore. So anyway, so Mercury retrograde is a great time for a review, even though it can cause like I said, a bit of confusion and upset with technology and communication. I really love to just embody that energy of review as much as possible. It's kind of like making lemonade out of those lemons. And so another thing that we have to look forward to as well, and I'm not going to talk about this too much, but, with Jupiter going direct the same day as Mercury, which is the 18th, Jupiter is like the planet of luck. It is good fortune. It is just everything going your way or just like windfalls. It's a really, really great energy. And it is a wonderful energy for manifesting and just really feeling like, wow, finally can catch a break, So that energy is going to be direct very soon. And I feel like all of us kind of have that to look forward to, it's just like, this last year and a half, almost 2 years now, like I'm like, how is it almost the end of 2021? It's been so challenging in so many different ways. And, there have been good things that have come out of this shift and change too, but we're not through it yet. We're still kind of in the throes of it. There's other stuff that just keeps coming up, but Jupiter, I feel, is like going to help, with just kind of like give us that like burst of hope, the beam of hope, like, okay, I see some things that are actually falling into place that needed to, and all of that. So I think, a lot of times when I think of like this time of year, as we were talking about the veil being thinner and it's kind of the end of the year, and like you think of, death and, that pause before you restart, that it's kind of hard to maybe think about manifesting, but we can always manifest, and we do manifest all the time. And I feel like, and I mentioned this in the little write-up I did last night about Mercury too, is that really what we think we create. And whether we are consciously creating or we are unconsciously creating, we're still creating. And, when we're like setting our intentions, we're like, I'm going to will this into happening. And, we're trying to manifest money or a new job or a car or whatever it is. And it happens, is so exciting. It's just like, oh my gosh, I manifested this. This is so wonderful. But so many other things we manifest, and we aren't like trying to positively manifest that. And we're like, wow, this really sucks. Why does this keep happening? So be aware of what you're thinking. Be aware of what you say to yourself inside your head. Be aware of those things that you kind of say repeatedly. It's kind of like your little, your little catch-all or whatever. And sometimes like we say we're sorry a lot. And I mean, it's good to be like apologetic if you really need to apologize for something. But if you're apologizing to say, oh, I'm sorry, for everything, it's kind of like just playing into that you let yourself down and you let someone else down. I saw a meme the other day that was saying that instead of saying you're sorry, say, if you're still like, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. If you're late, you can say, thank you for waiting for me. And it means the same thing, right? But just the energy of those words or those two different sentences are so different. And what you really want to acknowledge is that, yes, you are apologizing that you were late. Maybe you made someone wait, but really you are just wanting to express gratitude that they waited for you, you know? So when we kind of shift the focus, it's the same thing, but those two same thing, I guess, intention in a way, but those two different phrases, I'm sorry I was late, or thank you for waiting for me, really have two very different energetic imprints. So, when talking about not only Mercury, but intention setting, that when we go with what really helps expand and build on something, then our intention is moving in that expansive direction. So if we have negative self-talk or how we speak to others or converse with others might have that negative tone, then it kind of keeps us in this state of whether it is, feeling guilty or feeling bad or feeling angry or feeling like you disappointed someone or whatever. So be conscious, be aware of what you think and what you say. And you just might make a shift, just a tiny little shift in how you say it and how you word it. And then that can make a really big difference as far as what you're manifesting to really come into your reality. All right.